Welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and today we are live. With all of our live broadcasts, we encourage you to participate in the conversation. Please, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, go ahead and give us a comment. We'll bring those comments in, or you can ask a question directly to our guests, and we'll do our best to get to them. Make sure you do that early in the episode. Sometimes we have people commenting right at the end when we're closing out the episode, and I've already said goodbye to the guest by the time we see it, and we don't get a chance to include you. We want you to be part of the live broadcast. So make sure that you comment or ask questions as we have our conversation. Also, I just wanted to remind everyone that we have a weekly podcast that airs every Monday. Go over to heavydutypartsreport.com. We're interviewing heavy duty parts manufacturers and industry experts, really tackling the big questions around fleet maintenance, lowering total cost of operation, lowering that cost per mile. And we have some really great conversations there. So tune in at the heavydutypartsreport.com. Another exciting development is the Heavy Duty Parts Report is live on tncradio.live every day at 1 p.m. Central now. That's tncradio.live. And our entire show, well over 100 episodes, is in syndication on that platform. And that TNC stands for the Transportation Network channel. So go over to tncradio.live and check us out there daily at 1 p.m. Central. Today, we're going to talk about what is one of the hot button topics in our industry: predictive maintenance. Uptime is everything. Really, when we say uptime, we're just trying to make sure that there isn't unscheduled downtime. And we really are moving into a new era of fleet maintenance, because with telematics, there's the opportunity for this predictive maintenance, getting ahead of when something needs to be repaired. And to help us discuss that, I want to introduce my guest today. So Klay is with Optimum Fleet Health, and he's got over 6 years of experience in the oil and gas industry as an engineer. Klay brings a wealth of knowledge to Optimum Fleet Health. He started out with Husky Energy, and he has gone through his career from there, working for Exxon and now for Optimum. He really gets the transportation industry, and he's here to talk to us about how their platform helps commercial fleets with predictive maintenance. So to welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report, let's give Klay a big welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Klay.
Thanks. It's exciting to join. Looking forward to today.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation all week, because predictive maintenance is something that I want to learn more about. You know, as someone who sold heavy duty parts, I was always in that reactive position, right? My customers, whether they were a fleet or a repair shop, they were phoning us and saying, "We've diagnosed this problem. We've got to get this truck back on the road." I remember many times when my best customers would phone me directly and say, "Jamie, can you rush this part out, because this truck broke down, it wasn't expected, and it has a load that needs to be delivered. We got to get it back on the road. Can you help us out?" And so I spent a lot of my time just bombing around in my truck trying to get parts to people. Is this something that could be completely eliminated in the future? I want to learn more about predictive maintenance. So when did the telematic technology get to the point where it was possible to even think about predictive maintenance?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jamie. So we really noticed an entry in the market when the telematics service providers really reached out and were actually exporting in large structures of unfiltered fault diagnostic and also measurement data from each one of the vehicles, right? So every single telematics service provider that's out there nowadays, as well as the ELDs, once they become mandated, that data is available on each unit. So it's really a niche and an up and coming market, and nothing was really available until this time. So the amount of data that actually comes off these units is completely incredible, right? So we can use that data and harness anomaly detection to actually pick up instances weeks in advance before failure.
Right. As I was doing research in preparation for this, I saw this expression: at a glance, you can see the health status of your fleet in real time. Is there a time when a truck is like out of range? I mean, I live in a rural area in Western Canada. I've got the Rocky Mountains right there. If a lot of my old customers, they were working in mining or they were working in logging or oil field, is this reliant on like a cell phone connection? In that, when you think of being out of service, is that how it works? I'd like to learn more about the actual connection to the truck.
Exactly. So it's actually hooked up to the OBD2, J1939 or 17.8 connection. So nothing is ever out of service as long as there is a cell connection. So it's a dongle that plugs in and is fully integrated into the network at all times. So the vehicle will transmit that actual data, sometimes in video streams, be packaged together in real time. Other scopes are 1 minute, 3 minutes, and 15-minute increments. Where we will receive that full diagnostic fault and measurement data for our actual cloud infrastructure.
Okay. So when I think about Moore's law around technology, where technology is, it grows exponentially, right? It doubles, and the time between doubling of technology is shrinking rapidly. The next couple evolutions of, for example, going from 4G to 5G, people don't really understand how important that is. One thing that I saw that really put it into perspective is that if you can download a movie, the length of time it takes you to download a movie on 4G, you're going to be able to download 20 movies on 5G. This next evolution of the internet is going to radically change what we can do. How excited are you about the development of this technology in relation to using your software to help fleets?
Oh, we're extremely excited. I mean, we provide a solution to our clients, fully analyze the data through our artificial intelligence engine, and we understand each risk that will actually shut down the client for unscheduled downtime, costing them a lot of money in a tight margin environment. So what we do and what we provide for value for our customers, it's incredible, right? Our data scientists online, working hand in hand with our actual technicians, is a real niche in the industry where you get that hands-on experience as well as the technical integration that wasn't there before. So that's what we provide to our clients and save them a ton of money in the process.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the solution. So on your website, I see that there's kind of 3 steps of the technology right now. Let's talk about the first one, detect and diagnose. Let's talk about that part of the equation. How important is it? How does it work? And what's the economic impact of being able to detect and diagnose?
Yeah, exactly. So as I spoke about earlier, just to put it simple, we monitor about 8,000 real-time KPIs for these assets. I mean, the amount of data that's coming off of these units is incredible. When you really look into the scope, and the human untrained eye or trained eye would never be able to pick that out, right? So we actually have to extract all the data and run it through our artificial intelligence engine with machine learning, and our data scientists and technicians are always working hand in hand to refine the system. And then we also concentrate on feedback loops. So as you can understand, we always want to better the system, drive uptime, and make a better product for our actual customers.
Right. When I think of AI, I think of one kind of like moment in time when like AI was able to, do better at chess than the grandmaster. One report I read though is that the most effective use of AI is when we have AI working with really highly skilled people. So as you were talking about that, I was thinking about how our repair technicians that are able to do what they do is invaluable. But 8,000 KPIs, key performance indicators, I mean, that's just too much information for any human to be able to monitor and digest. So when you bring that AI together with really qualified technicians, that's the best of both worlds.
That's absolutely right. Right. The untrained eye can't pick that up. We see in the industry with our clients, when we can reduce the actual technician time and drive that vehicle in there, understanding what's wrong before it actually hits the shops, We can take away spares, we can increase the uptime, and that vehicle stays on the road.
The minute you start talking about decreasing labor, that's when fleets start making money. You know, that's one of those big expenses. And it's not like there's any shortage of work for the technicians, because after all, we're in a technician shortage. So I'm thinking this is just going to make fleets more efficient, and that's where they can start to see the economic impact.
Absolutely. One key component, like you spoke about earlier, is the actual the data scientists and the technicians working together, right? So when we can have that advanced knowledge, if you were to only scope the AI side of it and just pick out anomalies, it wouldn't be a good situation for the client, right? You'd have a lot of false reports, and in a large fleet, you could imagine clients wouldn't be happy with our service, and we probably operations wouldn't be in business, right? Because you'd be pulling that vehicle off for false reports. So that's one of the things we pride ourselves on. Throughout all of our operations, we hardly ever get feedback saying, you know what, you pulled this vehicle out, it wasn't actually needed. So we completely resolve that. So if you do get a low, medium, or high severity incident, it is actionable. So when we actually step into the predictive side of it, we understand we have 3 different notifications. So a low is typically 3 to 4 weeks out. We're going to let you guys know, your service managers, to say, hey, this is an underlying issue. You guys should kind of pay attention to this. And if you can get it in with the existing PM structure, let's say a 350-hour oil change, anything like that, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to save you some downtime in the future. As that escalates, our system will notify on a medium, which is an escalation of that incident, which is saying, you know what, that escalated. You maybe now only have 2 to 3 weeks, but that issue still is underlying. And then we also have a high severity incident, which is like that component will fail, cause other damage, and take that asset off the road, requiring a tow, spares being needed, and unscheduled downtime.
Right. So getting these 3 different levels of notifications gives the fleet the ability to plan in an appropriate way. To me, as someone who works with fleet maintenance managers a lot, I can see how that would really be a game-changing situation for them, because up until this technology has gotten to this level, there just is like, what's coming next, and nobody knew.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love to kind of hear some real world examples of how this technology has been used to solve problems. You don't have to give out any names, of course, but can you think of a time when this predictive technology really was game changing for a fleet that you've worked with?
Yeah, we get feedback from our customers all the time. We are on some of the largest North American operators. So when we get feedback from our clients, it's like, wow, like we're driving some 99% uptime. It's incredible. Obviously, all the components that we cover, engine, exhaust, coolant, braking, anything along those lines. So some quick issues. Let's say braking, toner rings, ABS sensor issues. We have all of our clients really now, from safety side of things, as soon as one of those issues come up, they pull that vehicle off the road, do a full inspection, just to understand that vehicle is safe to operate and maintain during that time, and not actually causing harm to anyone else on the road. So that's kind of the braking issue of it. Then we can move into more of the mechanical structure of it. So we're seeing a lot of engine issues, not engine issues, but engines with these CNG kits or anything added are having differential on their misfires. So we can actually pick out those 3 to 4 weeks in advance. So instead of replacing a certain Cummins engine for $60,000 or $70,000, it may be a re-sleeve of that engine for $8,000 to $10,000, and saving excuse me, full downtime. So that's on the engine component, as well as exhaust regens with the new DPFs, everything along those lines. They'll shut you down into limp mode. We'll know a couple weeks in advance to say, you know what, this is an issue underlying. We're going to solve it for you before you're stuck on the side of the load, or on this, before you're stuck on the side of the road in limp mode in the middle of nowhere and require a tow. One actually interesting situation came up the other week. We always have new ones, but it was actually up in Alaska. This specific client kept getting a coolant code and saying like, okay, like this code keeps coming up, but low coolant, what's happening? And we actually have a prescriptive tool that will guide and say the steps to correct the procedure, right? So the actual indication kept getting ignored and saying, you know what, we keep checking this. The diligence behind the block, there's actually a hose that was leaking that our system kept picking up and saying, you know what, this is getting severe, right? Unfortunately, that client, due to that, had a turbo failure and an EGR failure. So it was about $8,000 to $10,000 for the turbo and about another $4,000 to $5,000 for the EGR cooler, and took that asset out of commission for 3 to 4 days. And it can be upwards to 2 weeks. So a little $2 hose and paying attention to that alert could save serious downtime. And another issue in the same scope is we picked it up 3 weeks ago on the same coolant issue with another fleet, and actually just minimizing a scored piston. So that engine actually had to be replaced, unfortunately. But we did pick it out. We will get into situations where since it's a new predictive technology, lots of operators or mechanics will say, you know what, we're going to run this to failure. So we do have situations where they'll run those fleets to failure and then kind of say like, hey, you actually did pick it out 3 to 4 weeks in advance. Like, that's incredible. How did you do that? And then we'll bring on fleets for trials sometime, and they'll say, wow, like, wish we would have had you 3 weeks ago. Like, those 3 trucks are sitting in the shop for a new engine right now. So it's kind of funny to hear the feedback. It's pretty interesting, and at the end of the day, we want to provide a service for clients that saves them money and keeps their vehicles on the road.
Yeah, we don't just want to save money, we want to help them make money. So it sounds, yeah, exactly. And it sounds like with this predictive maintenance, there's also a little bit of trust that has to go into it once they get comfortable with it and be like, you know what, this is the real deal. This is really something we should pay attention to. So, okay, we've got this technology. We're predicting ahead of time that things are potentially needing to be addressed. I remember, and I told that story before on purpose, but when I was a sales account manager, I spent a lot of my time running parts. It's all fine and good to have the truck, in to get it diagnosed correctly, to prevent some catastrophic failure. But again, if the parts don't show up on time, that truck still sits. So how does your system integrate with a fleet system so that not only are they able to identify what needs to be fixed ahead of time, but they're also able to line up the parts so that when that truck arrives, everything's ready to go. The technician knows what to do, the parts are on hand, and the truck is repaired and back on the road as soon as possible. How does that work?
Absolutely. So just a full system walkthrough, which is so beneficial. We see in the industry is, you know what, you're going to run into different situations where fleets they have different ELDs, different telematic service providers. From that scope, we can work with anyone, right? So we actually integrate into existing TSPs. As we move through the process, we actually have our team. The team will work with the actual dashboard, and the service managers will action that event through our dashboard. So as soon as an event happens, they'd click the vehicle, the right-hand column would actually be populated of the corrective procedure to fix that. At the bottom, it's a one-click button to say create work order. In that scope, as soon as the service manager actually clicks that button, we integrate with several CMMS solutions or ERP solutions. With different clients, they do vary, but that actual work order will be pushed into that ERP system within that scope. So the scheduling or planning team, depending on the size of the operation, will have a visual and the criticality of that event. So what we like to see is our lows and mediums, like we talked about earlier. you know what, those can be brought in, and the scheduler or planner can actually say, you know what, we understand the underlying issue on this. We're going to create this work order that's already in here. Add 4 tech hours, and this wiring harness has to be in, right? Here's the lead time on that. So let's push that out 2 weeks and bring it in with the existing PM of that asset. The next situation that we get into are high critical events, where in our system, create a work order is clicked, everything is pushed to the actual ERP system, and in that situation, the exact same process actually happens. So the in-house on the actual client side can almost build a report in their ERP, let's say SAP, and say, you know what, this is the part list that usually happens for this coolant code, this brake code, or this is a wiring harness. These are the hours outlined for it, and the full scope of cost can actually be applied, as well as when the parts will be available. So that's kind of how we work that. There's definitely different circumstances that we come across, but most of our clients deal with it in kind of that workflow.
So the answer to my question with can they get ahead on parts? The answer is yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah. So as soon as 3 to 4 weeks ahead, right? So as soon as they know something's going on, they schedule that work order, and the client will have that actual part list well before that asset goes down on the side of the road, and it's a last minute scramble to get it there and get back.
Right. I'm just looking up in my content schedule here because I believe in a week or two, we're going to be talking about the supply chain issues that are going on right now. So being able to leverage your technology to get a little bit ahead on parts acquisition for upcoming work could be very important, because maybe if you waited until the day of, the parts company might be out of something that it's got a supply chain issue, but you order it 3 weeks in advance, there might be time to either find that part or acquire it from another parts supplier. So we've got Jerry Mead coming up next week, and he's going to talk about the importance of the impact of parts shortages on fleets. He's part of Hub Group, so a big US fleet, but it's going to be great to hear their perspective, because this is a real issue, especially with some of the supply chain issues caused by COVID.
Exactly. And one other aspect on that, like, we have in-depth return on investment analytics in each industry that we've been operating in. So let's say school bus, waste industry, and transit, long road trucking. So we understand the actual failure analytics and scope in each one of those industries, and we understand what downtime actually occurs in that. So let's say you're replacing engine, it could be out for 20 operating days or 40 operating days, right? So when you can reduce your actual spare costs, which generally might be upwards to $25,000 a year per spare, kind of rotating throughout your organization, when you can reduce that from, I mean, we see outliers anywhere from 15 to 25% of their fleet being spares. When we can drive that down into an efficient business model of 7, 8, and 9% spare ratio, that's when our clients are seeing some huge upside.
Huge upside. Yeah. Going back to that story you told about the hose in Alaska, I was just thinking how in a larger fleet, once you have an event like that go on, you're then able to say, hey, we ever get that code again on any of our trucks, we know where to go look first. So it's also probably a wonderful tool if used properly as a training opportunity for all the techs who work for you. So even if you're an independent repair shop or you're a fleet and you get access to this information, you can leverage it going forward with your repair and parts techs to explain, hey, look, this is a good case study. This is what happened. Next time we get that fault code, look at this hose first, because this engine, this truck is prone to that failure.
Well, and it can be different too, right? We run into circumstances where, one of our main goals is to cut down on technician time, right? So when we can reduce that by 75, 80%, that truck's coming into the shop, the technician already knows what's wrong with it, what parts have to be there. And these are vetted through all of our customers, like thousands and thousands of occurrences each year, or even each month, I guess. So those are vetted, and when you don't have to sit around and troubleshoot a truck for 2 to 3 hours, and what's happening, it's a huge cost saver.
Right. And, I was part of a roundtable discussion, and we had Ruin Transportation on. And one of the things they were talking about is like they've got big national programs and they work really closely with their OES, and they have their own repair technicians. But they have such a scope to their business with 4,200 units that they do end up using the independent service channel. I was just thinking of how fleets would be able to leverage these tools to actually be able to send that truck over to an independent repair and say, hey, by the way, this is what's wrong. This is what needs to be fixed. We can't get it into the truck dealership that we normally deal with because they're 3 weeks booked up. But here's all the information you need. Get it fixed and get that truck back to us. And that would be a great communication tool when you have to step outside of your usual maintenance and repair program, which the bigger the fleet is, the more often that happens.
Yeah, and we do see that actually. So we're seeing a trend almost catch on. So and it's super easy, right? So it's just admin rights to the actual telematics service provider, which our dashboard is actually implemented within, right? So let's say you wanted to see all of your coolant codes or engine codes go to a specific supplier. That's super easy. You'd basically give a third party access and say, you know what, you have these rights. Please check it every single day. If an issue does come up, schedule that event and bring it into your shop right away, right? So we see that in a couple different instances: engine misfire codes, and also a little bit of the wiring harness issues. So.
You've been watching the Heavy Duty Parts Report live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. The replay will be available on heavydutypartsreport.com. If you'd like to learn more about the solution provided by Optimum Fleet Health, go over to optimumfleethealth.com. Links are in the show notes. Klay, I assume that you would offer people like a demo if they're interested in the platform. If they go to your website, they'll be able to schedule that.
Yep, for sure. So you can go to our website or send me an email at Klay, Klay, at optimumfleethealth.com, or reach out over our website, LinkedIn. We're always open to new pilots. We'll walk your organization through the entire scope, link you up with our technicians, in-house, everything like that, review the product, and follow a 4-week to 6-week actual pilot program, and then provide you guys of how much money we can actually save on the events that occurred over the pilots, and give you an actual underlying benefit of, really what value we can drive in your business.
Fantastic. Klay, thanks for being on the Heavy Duty Parts Report.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone.
So you've been watching the Heavy Duty Parts Report, and next week we're going to talk about the impact of parts shortages on fleets, and I'm really looking forward to having Jerry Mead, who's the Vice President of Fleet Maintenance for the Hub Group. He's going to give us an inside perspective on what fleets are going through right now. So make sure you're back next Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain, 12 Eastern, and I look forward to having Jerry on and us talking about that next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in.